morning. Thank you very much all for joining. Discussion, debate, meeting with the Commissioner. And I'm happy that we have today here students from different law faculties. We have here University of Skopje. Where are the students from Skopje University? Okay. Then we have students from Tetovo, two universities in Tetovo. One is State Tetovo University. Students are where? There? Okay. Tetovo wing, yes. And then we have Southeastern Europe that's the first row here, okay. And then we have from Štip, I think we have also some students at the back. Very good. I think I covered all universities. I'll give you the floor at the beginning to say a few words, and then of course it's always interesting to hear not only questions but also comments from your side to the Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dobrý den. Is it okay? I am a Czech lady, so I understand some of your language, and I guess you might understand mine. I am happy to be here with you. I always say that when I meet the young people, I feel myself younger. Maybe it doesn't look like that, but it's always fine not only to have a chance to say something to the students who, especially here, might bring new hope for the sector of judiciary and prosecution. You are the new fresh blood which the country needs, and also to, as the ambassador said, to hear your comments and feedback. I am the responsible for justice, consumers policy, data protection. So my big friend is Facebook. You can imagine, with in the digital era, we have a complicated relationship with Facebook. And also I'm responsible for equality, including gender equality and human rights. And I should continue in the new commission as the Vice President of the Commission responsible for values and transparency. Values, it's an abstract term. What we mean by that, to put it simply, is the rule of law, respect to fundamental rights, and supporting and upholding democracy. And also the freedoms, freedom of speech, and many other important things. In Europe, we have sometimes a tendency to say European Union is useful and advantages because we have a better standard of living. We have better products in the shops, and we have good cars. And as the Commissioner responsible for consumers policy, I am happy to hear that. But we all know, and you are students or already lawyers, we all know that it cannot be like that. It's not only about food and products. That's why we should pay attention to these big principles where the rule of law should be emphasized as among the first ones. I am a Czech person, as I told you. Having the rule of law in portfolio, it's not easy. Also in my country, the Czechs are friends of Polish people. My granny was Polish, and you might know that in Poland there are the reforms of judiciary system ongoing, which we find very problematic. And it started in December 2015, when there were the first elements of the reform of judiciary adopted in the parliament overnight. We were all badly surprised, and since then the procedure on rule of law started with Poland. Later it started with Hungary, where we also see some problematic elements in their system. So it's not easy to face such a new situation. We have the so-called Article 7 in the Lisbon Treaty, which can be triggered in relation to a country where we see systemic breach of the rule of law. My guess is that those who proposed the treaty, the Lisbon Treaty of the EU, and who formulated this Article 7, they didn't expect that this article will ever be triggered. It was just for the last case, last resort scenario, and it had to be triggered. So we are facing a new situation, and it is quite clear that these values, rule of law, but also fundamental rights, basic democratic parameters are not automatic. They are not forever. This is not the end of history, as Fukuyama predicted. We have to pay due attention to these principles and to work together with the member states, but also with civil society, with the media, to keep these principles alive in the member states. And this concerns also the accession countries. This concerns the Western Balkan countries, where in the negotiations we are looking very carefully on the reforms in the judiciary sector. We are looking at whether the prosecution works well, whether there are efficient measures to fight against corruption, money laundering, organized crime. These are all the things which we are focusing on in the negotiations with the Western Balkans. But I am describing to you that we are very vigilant about these things also towards the EU countries. This is not just the focus on the countries which want to join. Now more than before, we see that it's important to work to strengthen the system. What I find the most difficult on the rule of law protection and support is to explain to the normal citizens why it is vital. Not everybody is a lawyer. It's a good thing. But I sometimes use some comparisons to explain to people why they should also be nervous if they see that the political party which has won elections wants to grab judiciary and politicize it. I want to explain to the public that the principle that the winner takes all after elections must not be in place in Europe. This is not the principle we want. We want the division of powers, independent judiciary. We want to have the efficient executive branch and responsible and predictable legislative branch. This is the system which we want to maintain in all the member states, and the member states are sovereign states. So the EU is pushing, but after all, it's always the decision of the state how to set up the system. And in case there is a failure to keep the rule of law mechanisms, there is the European Court of Justice, which have a say, which already happened towards Poland. So to explain to the general public that rule of law means that there is nobody above the law, no autocrat, no dictator who could be above the law. I sometimes use the comparison with the football match. Just imagine that you watch the football match and you are fans of the team, but of one of the two teams, and there is no referee who would stop the game when the fall appears, and your team plays up the hill. It might be the situation of the citizens in the country where the rule of law fails to function well. I am very interested in your views on rule of law, what we could do not only in Europe but also, of course, in North Macedonia. How important you find the principle, and your views, what you yourself can do to protect the rule of law as the basic principle. I understand you are the hope of this country. You are future judges. Are there some... no current judges. You are preparing for the job. Are you preparing for the job of prosecutors? Yes. Are here some hunters? You must have this hunting instinct in your blood. But at the same time, as prosecutor, you must have a very strong instinct for fair process. So to assess the evidence for and against the accused person and so on. The reputation of judiciary is not created automatically by good institutional setup. After all, it's always created by real people who go to work to the sector and who work honestly, who have very strong moral integrity, who are aware of their main task to be independent and impartial and professional. And it's, of course, not easy. But that's my appeal to you, that you should be aware that it's not only the knowledge of laws, but also these big things which will make you big people in a big sector. So that's my wish for you to manage this very important task. We are now negotiating the so-called e-evidence directive or regulation. I don't know. Kevin is here. Kevin, is it? It doesn't matter. To address the problem, you have some criminal offense in one member state, but the evidence is somewhere in the cloud. We live in digital era, so somewhere abroad, you know, where probably the e-evidence, electronic evidence is stored. You know the company. It is Facebook or Google or somebody else. But it's somewhere in another country. So you have to ask the ministry in another country to ask Facebook for that e-evidence. It takes 120 days. Just imagine if you find out that a terrorist attack is being prepared. You need to get the evidence now. So what the prosecutors were telling me, and the judges also partly, we cannot continue investigating the crime with those state limits, because the criminals have no borders in the EU with Schengen, no physical borders, and the criminals have no borders to hide the evidence of their criminal wrongdoing in the digital era. Because digital world, it's a parallel world above our head somewhere, this is how I imagine it, which has no state borders. And the prosecutors are telling me we cannot continue investigating these things. We have a big issue with hate speech. We have a big issue with terrorist content. Just imagine the prosecutor here will need to get the evidence and he only knows that it is not in the country, it's somewhere else. So he has to ask the IT providers to check whether the evidence is there and deliver it. It sounds like a science fiction, but we are there now. And you would be surprised, already Facebook and Google and others, they are delivering the e-evidence, the electronic evidence upon request, but not always. They make selection. Can we investigate big crime like that in Europe? I don't think we can continue like that. So we want to establish the system when the prosecutor will ask directly Facebook, and in Facebook there will be one email address for the prosecutors in Europe, from which they will expect very quick reaction, because when in most urgent cases we set the deadline of 10 hours, not 120 days, 10 hours, or several weeks, but we need to speed up the investigation. But we have a problem with the rule of law, because this directive is now pending in the legislative process and criticized by some that there is not sufficient mutual trust between the member states. So the system is very complicated, and the breach of the trust is causing more and more problems. So sorry, I got too much into a detailed description of this file, but you are experts. Do you like criminal law? Yes? Who likes civil law here? Some. I don't want to test you. Yes, I liked criminal law as well. By the way, I studied the law after some horrible time which I had in my life. I was accused of corruption and I was in jail. And I realized that if an innocent person is put into jail, there is something horribly wrong. And when they released me, I started to study the law, because I wanted to know how it should work. I wanted to know how it is possible that an innocent person is put to jail and destroyed totally. You can imagine, I was a publicly known person, and this was a horrible, tragic for the whole family, not only for myself. And the third thing, I wanted to be able to defend myself in case something else will come. And I had 2 children who studied the universities as well, my son and daughter, and they always saw me studying and not making money. And I was divorced already, so I was the only source of money. So it was a really very difficult time, and my children kept telling me, "Mommy, please don't do this stupid thing. You will never finish the studies. 5 years of heavy study, and we need the money." And I promised to them, "Please be patient. I will borrow the money. We will survive somehow. And I promise, after I finish my study of law, I will find a good job." So a year after I finished the study, I became the Justice Commissioner for the EU. So you see, but this is not about myself. Just to let you know that I have my own story with criminal justice, which can be abused for political fight, because it was a dirty political matter. I don't want to go into details, but I have many sins, but not taking the money. It is not my style. It is sometimes underestimated that a well-functioning rule of law is precondition for economic prosperity, and it is. We have a lot of evidence showing that without functioning rule of law, the investors will not be eager to go to the country to invest the money. And the domestic businesses will suffer from legal uncertainty. So if somebody will tell you that you are not producing your contribution to the economic prosperity of the country, shout, because it's not true. The rule of law and the whole judiciary sphere is absolutely vital and instrumental for supporting the economic situation of the country. I spoke too long. Finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you for being very frank in your presentation, also sharing the personal story. I think that connects to people a lot.
I was 13 kilograms. But it's not a diet, I would recommend.
I'm opening the floor for questions, comments. Commissioner spoke a few times about the trust in judiciary, trust in the rule of law. Is anybody who wants to share a little bit? How is it here? What's the trust in judiciary? Where do you see the problem? If there is a problem in trust in judiciary in this country? Or any other questions that you would have to, please. We have a microphone. And maybe we can take few questions and then like 3 questions, and then Commission will come in. Please.
Okay. Well, earlier in your speech, you said that you are also responsible for equality, including here gender equality. I'm personally interested in knowing, has there been any progress in reducing the gender pay gap recently?
Yeah, we have some member states where already now the women work for free. From, I think the pay gap day is middle of October. Sometimes we have the best state which have the pay gap only 3%, and the worst which has 32% of pay gap. We have in all the member states comparably horrible situation when the senior women, the pensioners, have 39% smaller pension than men. And it has to be changed. You asked concretely whether there has been some progress. Not much. We are pushing the member states to do 4 things. To go after the cases of clear discrimination. Man, woman, same work, different salary. That's discrimination which is already now prohibited by the law. But the law is not enforced. So this is one thing. This direct discrimination causes around 8% of the pay gap. Yeah, are you with me? Can you imagine? The pay gap has 4 different sources. So this is one of them, this direct discrimination. Then the care for the family, which is mainly on women. There are the interruptions in the career, and so, of course, it causes the gap in the salary automatically. So we are now, I propose the legislation so that the men share more the duties in the family when the children come. But it's up to the choice of the family. We are not social engineers, yeah. But we are introducing paternity leave for 10 days. We are introducing parental leave, which predicts that there should be equally divided duties. And we said clearly that the EU funds and national money should be used better and more for services, kindergartens, creches, social services, so that the women can go to work in case they want to work. So that's the third, the second reason for pay gap. This is the family duty. The third reason are segregated jobs. The lowest salaries are in education, social services, and health sector. It's for the state to recognize that there should be higher salaries, because we are in public sector here. When speaking about those low-paid, segregated, feminized jobs. And we are really very heavily pushing the member states to increase the salaries and to recognize the work of teachers and nurses and social workers better. And the fourth source of pay gap is, pay attention ladies, low self-confidence of women. They do not ask for money. And we have a lot of studies showing that still the women ask for small money, and it should be changed. We have only 11% of women in digital sector in the EU. Why such a low figure? It's because of the education. When the IT companies tell me we would love to employ more women, but they are not educated for that. So there are many different factors, but not big progress. But I expect that the pay gap should be decreased quite reasonably in the following 5 years when our measures will come into force.
So hi, my name is Imria Idrize. I wanted to add something when we were talking about gender equality, and I think that we must focus on from where these problems are coming. We should seek for the roots of these problems. And I think the roots of the problem are the culture, the tradition that we are facing right now. We raise girls since we are kids that men are so stronger than them and they should have higher salaries, or women should look out for kids and other stuffs. But I think that how we can fix this problem is to raise our kids and to educate ourselves about gender equality. And so if we don't want to have this kind of problem in the future, it's not about setting a lot of laws, but we should also work on the mentality and the education system more for this kind of issues. I think this is where we should be starting to solve this problem.
Can you see my sad face? Why? Because you are absolutely right. This is the matter of culture and mentality, and it requires more than 5 years or a decade. There has to be gradual change, and the people must be able to adapt to the new needs and new conditions. You cannot break it by some law.
Of course.
That's
what I was saying.
It's about the education, and I am myself a product of the Czech culture. By the way, Czechs have the proverb "doma je doma," and the Czechs do not travel much. We don't have this problem with migration because the Czechs have always been the battlefield. The Czech Republic was always a battlefield of all the wars in Europe. So we are sitting at home waiting for the new catastrophe to come, and we love it at home. So we don't migrate. Nothing against the Czech mentality, but I am myself the product of the culture I was educated in. One thing is my father wanted to have a boy. So he was, you understand it, no, don't you? I was a big disappointment for him. And so he prohibited my mother to give me some of the patterns which the women usually get. So I was prohibited, for instance, do some knitting or these domestic works. My father was very, very tough on this, but the cultural impact is huge. That's why I mentioned the low self-confidence of women, which is the product of the cultural background. And over my whole childhood, I heard the same thing. Speak only when they ask you to speak, as a girl. Yeah. And then I came to big politics, and it was several years. It was in fact paralyzing me, and I realized I have to fight against this monster which I have inside, which is culturally and through education grown in myself. So I had to actively rework this speak when you asked into speak when you have something to say. And it would be my advice to you, not only girls, also the man, because sometimes we hear an avalanche of words also from the politicians who in fact say nothing because they want to avoid the real answer or the concrete answer. It's not so much the case of women. When you look at how women behave in politics, they always try to be concrete. But I will never say that the women are better politicians than men. For me, there are good and bad people. But you are right with this cultural and mentality background. It is the work for years. It has to start in education. It has to also be somehow captured by media.
Yeah.
Not to distribute further the prejudices and the bias. I don't know where you are with the Istanbul Convention. Have you ratified?
Yes.
So there are two parts. One is to fight against the violence against women and children and against domestic violence as such. And then there is this part related to education, not to increase and maintain the stereotypes. And there is a hope that there will be changes, but it will take more time.
I think that the media is a good indicator to raise the awareness about gender equality, nations or races, and also the educational system. I think the world should be more focusing on this. Only by changing the way the media says things or the school teachers teach kids, then we can make change. Otherwise, it's not enough just to set up some laws and create some rules, because people will not follow them if they don't really respect that. They should raise their awareness about respecting humans because they are human beings, not because they belong to one nation or to one race or to any gender, woman or female or man. I think the world should be focusing on this. That was my comment.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm moving to another subject and topic. I was interested more about the cyber attacks, as you mentioned it earlier. So my question is about the EU laws and legislative about the cyber defense. So what do we have so we can deal with this problem? Thank you.
We have the so-called ENISA agency, which is the European agency, which is supporting the member states in their fight against cyber attacks. We have the directive which sets the parameters of safety for the national systems, but also for some European systems where we share the sensitive data. We will, on top of this, come with the recommendation by the end of this year how to deal with the issue of 5G.
When I go around the country, at each meeting they ask me about that. Could you maybe explain a little bit about that?
How are the questions formulated?
Sorry, question is yes, that we are censoring the EU are censoring the internet and limiting the. It's from the side of Facebook they are asking the question from the standpoint of limiting the rights.
Hereby, I declare that we are not censoring. We had to do something about and around illegal content. Illegal content is the content which is prohibited by our European laws. So what concretely it means? It's child pornography, it's terrorist content, and it's hate speech targeted to individuals or groups of people. And so when we see how easily this illegal content is distributed through the channels like Facebook or Google and other platforms, we had to act, because we have the mantra which says that what's illegal offline is also illegal online. How to achieve the goal that the law will be respected online? There are 3 ways of doing that. Chinese way, to switch them off. Give this answer to those who ask you. We don't want to go Chinese way. The second option might be to create some kind of digital police or digital prosecution or digital courts. The lady asked me about the court, the special courts, so we are close to that. This could evolve in some kind of censorship, some kind of creating the ministries of truth or something like that. The softest measure, and this was our way, was that we ask the platforms to do their own job, to detect this illegal content. In case of clear-cut cases, which is child pornography and terrorist content, to remove it within some deadline. For child pornography and terrorist content, we already have the legislation that they have the obligation to do that. For hate speech, it's more complicated case because not always the hate speech is a clear-cut case. If somebody wants to send this is the quote, all the gypsies should go to the gas chamber, it's a clear-cut case and we want them to remove it within 24 hours after they themselves detect it or after they are notified. But there are offensive speeches, there are some satiric contents which they should leave there because the freedom of expression has priority. In Germany, there is a law now which says that all the platforms have to remove hate speech within some deadline. I think they also have for 24 hours. And if they don't do it, they are under the sanction. So in case of doubt, in Germany, they are removing it. For the rest of Europe, we have this as an agreement with some platforms, but covering 96% of the space, that they will remove it, and in case of doubt, they will leave it there, because the freedom of expression has the priority. But it was the easiest part of it. Illegal content which is prohibited by European laws. Disinformation, legally speaking, what do you think? Is it illegal content? Is lying illegal? Fake news. Is it? In North Macedonia, it should be. It's a problematic thing, because here we are at the core of the issue is censorship. What is fake news? When it is illegal, when there is a manifestly clear lying, or when it does the harm to the public or some individuals, it's very difficult. So we have a definition. Now it's a test for my memory. What is the disinformation on which we should react somehow on? That it is intentionally produced, verifiably false, manipulative information which has the purpose, which is coordinated, the production of which is coordinated and distribution is coordinated, which has the purpose to do harm to the public, to environment, or to democracy. Yeah, the definition is quite precise.
Honorable Commissioner, I have a question. I think the rule of law is very important for our country, but I'm going into another direction about implementing the reforms in our country. Do you think that making and implementing the reforms in our country will help our country into a better future, and that it is a guarantee that our country will meet the conditions for starting negotiations with Europe?
I will give you a general answer, not only on North Macedonia, because it is there are some general principles. The reforms are usually made to improve the life of people in the country. But the reforms must be well thought through. They must be based on good intentions. That's a basic parameter. They must be workable in practice. And if the reforms result in restructuring the institutions or creating new institutions, it's not the result itself yet. The institutions must be full of professionals who take their jobs seriously, who work according to the rules alike. That's why I spoke a lot before about the reputation of judiciary and prosecution, which has to be upheld by the real people, by the concrete people working in the sector. So, good intentions, good plan for the reforms, implementation of the reforms which will not move only on the surface, but which will go into the problems, set up of the institutions and the professionals working in the institutions. And then, only after you have all that, and you show from the political side that this is meant seriously, and it is explained to the people that the reform is there to improve the life of the people might start trusting it. But it takes time. In the countries where there is a low trust towards judiciary, then judiciary is an easy target for politicization, because the politicians do not risk anything. The people don't care. That's why it's open. I always mention the people that they have to play with us in supporting the rule of law.